Hi, my name is Leah Day, and welcome to this video for the Free Motion Quilting Project. Today we're learning a new design perfect for the sashing of your quilts. It's in a nice little narrow area that I'm going to stitch out, and this is called alien eggs. It's kind of a weird combination of shapes, but it made me think of alien science fiction movies, so that's my inspiration. It's going to be kind of an odd design, but I hope you like it. Let's get started. Okay, so here is the alien eggs I've stitched so far. And this is an edge to center design, which means that we'll be working off this edge first and stitching the design into the center of the space. Now sometimes I stretch a design element all the way down and hit the opposite edge. Sometimes I keep them very, very close up here to one side. You don't have to always go basically from edge to dead on the center. You can kind of play with this and make some bigger and some smaller. It really varies the design and makes it look a lot more organic, and that's kind of what I'm going for here. When we get to the opposite side, we'll travel stitch down, and then we'll start filling in these shapes so that they fill in from the opposite side too, working from edge to center. So it's a really cool way of quilting in a narrow space. And if you're looking for a simpler design, flowing glass is basically kind of the same idea, but much, much simpler. We don't have the filling and dense quilting in here, and so if you're looking for something just a little bit more basic, then that would be a good design to start with. But this is pretty easy. Let me get started stitching and you can see how it works. Basically what I'm going to do is stitch a wiggly line and form a teardrop shape. It doesn't have to be huge. And then now I'm going to stitch inside of that teardrop shape with pebbling. That's circles stacked together, and you want to vary the size of these circles. They don't all have to be the same size. In fact, actually, if you have an occasional big circle, that looks really good. If you stitch off the line, don't worry, just do what I'm doing here. I'm adding more travel stitching and making the thread stand out even more. That actually looks better. Of course, if you break thread doing this, chances are that might mean that you have a thread that's just a little too thick or too weak to do this, so just watch out for that. This is a lot of dense stitching. Okay, so I'm going to work my way back out again. I filled in that little teardrop, and I'm going to stitch along that wiggly line to get back to my edge. I'm going to travel stitch over, and I'm going to echo around the entire thing. That's going to add just a little bit of space around the design. It's going to make it stand out a little bit better. And that's the basic set of steps in order to form the shape. Now moving on from there, I'm always kind of looking, with designs like these, I'm kind of looking at the spaces I'm leaving open, because I always have to remember to leave space so that when I come in from the opposite edge, I have a place to go. But I have this little weird space here, and I doubt that I'll be able to kind of wiggle in here and do anything with it. So I'm going to go ahead and fill that in, working from this side. You kind of have to just stop and think about it occasionally. And it's a-okay to go ahead and just stitch half of a teardrop or just a big bulbous end of a teardrop. That works fine. No right or wrong way to do it. I'm just adding more travel stitching, more thread in these areas so that it stands out just a little nicer. Anytime you stitch off the line a little bit, just go back in there and trace over it with your needle. You'll add another layer of thread over it, and it'll hide any mistakes. It's just nothing to worry about. When I say that this is easy, it's easy in the sense that you're stitching simple shapes, and you can hide your mistakes by adding more thread. The things that might be difficult is the density, the level of travel stitching. That might be a struggle if you're still just learning, so kind of keep an eye out for that. Now we're just going to stitch out and swing around with our echo. Getting to this point of stitching this small, it does take time and practice, but it's really, it's one of those things that's just a skill builder. The more you do this kind of thing, the easier it will get. And I should say also, stitching on a small scale like this will give you a lot more experience, a lot more bang for your buck, for the smallest amount of fabric used. So if you're worried or have an issue with wasting fabric for practice, well, you don't have to use that much so long as you're willing to stitch on a smaller scale. You get a lot more thread, a lot more repetition on a smaller scale than you ever would if you stitch this big. So I'm going to finish up this side, and then I'm going to travel stitch down to this edge, And I'll meet you back here when I'm ready to start filling in these shapes and matching up some alien eggs coming from the opposite side. Okay, so here's my little space that I want to stitch into and fill. So I want to kind of stitch down the edge of the quilting space to get kind of dead in the middle, and then I'm going to stitch down and wiggle in with my teardrop. I don't want to make this too big. Don't be afraid of leaving some space around it, leaving some space open. That's perfectly fine. The last thing you want to do is fill in the space completely. It'll really lock the design down and not look so good. So don't hesitate to make it a small little teardrop, a small little shape, and just fill it in with some tiny circles, just like that. Okay, now I'm going to echo around it. Very simple. And so you're going to have negative space. Negative space simply means, you know, these open gaps around these alien eggs. You're going to have those spaces. I think they make the design look better. So just keep that in mind. I think it adds more texture. It even draws your eye even more to the design because you have these areas of density and these areas of emptiness, and I think it makes a really beautiful combination. So here's what it looks like whenever you finish alien eggs. So this is a pretty intense design. There's a lot of things going on. We've got some dense pebbling inside of those teardrops, and of course we've got the beautiful empty space between these alien eggs. I think that this design is probably on the advanced side of things, but I don't want to scare you off from trying it. Stitching a design like this on a beginner level, hey, I would have jumped into it. I would have tried it. And basically what's going to happen is it might not look identical to mine, but it will give you lots of practice and it will give you lots of experience trying something new. I would say, you know, don't pay attention to the difficulty ratings of anything really. Go with what inspires you. Go with what makes you really, really, really want to go stitch that and master it, because if you're excited about it, if you're pumped up about it, then of course you're going to put more dedication and focus into it. When I first started quilting, I felt very frustrated by all the beginner level stuff. I wanted to be quilting all the advanced stuff, and I felt like I had to do all the beginner kind of boring stuff first before I could reach that level. Finally, I just kind of threw all that whole mentality out the window and said, you know what, I'm going to stitch what I want to stitch, and I'm not going to worry about how it looks. I'm going to stitch what I want, and it will get better. And that's exactly what happened. My first stitching looked terrible. I just did it anyway. I ignored it. I ignored what looked bad. I kept quilting, and pretty soon I was able to do those things that I wanted to do, and they look great. But don't wait, and don't be waiting for those good stitches to try something challenging. I think the challenge is what gives us the good stitches. It's a little bit of a contradiction, but I think it works. My point, I guess, more than anything else, is just if this is inspiring to you, don't wait to stitch it. Just go and do it. Give it a try. See what happens. If your thread breaks, it's not the end of the world. You might need a different kind of thread. If your needle breaks, well, you might want to watch how much you're stitching in one spot. That's normal too. These things happen. You have to learn how to flow with them. I don't think that your needle will break, just in case you're worried about it. But I want to inspire you to try it, even if you feel like this is beyond your level right now, because it might actually be a little easier than you think. A lot of times we make things a lot harder in our head than they actually are. So, my name is Leah J, and this has been a video for the Free Motion Quilting Project. Find hundreds of beautiful free motion quilting designs at freemotionproject.com, complete with free videos for you to watch and enjoy as many times as you like. Also check out our website, leahday.com, where you'll find a quilt shop dedicated to carrying all the tools and supplies for free motion quilting. The quilt shop supports the Free Motion Quilting Project. It allows me to post these videos for free. So we really appreciate your support. Until next time, let's go quilt.